Hello, everybody. Welcome to our conversation with Randy Edelman, part two. I am joined by Justin, who was with us for the first one, and I am honored to meet you, Randy. It's the guys did such a good job talking to you last time, and it was so much fun to listen back to.
Well, thank you. It was fun to be there, and now I'm back again.
Yeah, you sure are. A lot of stuff's happened, right? We talked about Ghostbusters 2, the composition, the big press release that came out. You were gonna talk about a little bit.
Okay, but hold on. You keep talking about Ghostbusters. What composition? It's the score to the movie.
Thank you. Sorry,
it's a major score. Come on, 90 minutes of music is not a composition.
That's
true. I got it right up here. Yeah. Anyway, so that is a long story, years in the making, and now it's coming out in sort of in a couple of weeks, CD, and then the vinyl. Mm-hmm. That's it. Yeah. But that's a long story. You don't want to hear that whole story.
I will hear whatever you want to hear.
I am excited that the Ghostbusters 2 score is coming out. I want to pick that up on vinyl.
Pick it up, baby. It's coming out. Yeah. It's long in the making. They kept trying to do it, and so that it's taken a long time for several reasons. But
and I've been listening to Coming on the Other Side a lot. I've really enjoyed that very much. Your single.
Thank you.
Very good. Yeah.
Well, that's sort of why I'm here.
Yeah.
So if you've been listening, that's good. You just got to play it.
I have.
Are you going to play it? Are you going to play it to the audience?
Yes, we can.
That's what you. Okay, that's
we'll get right on that.
You don't have to do it when I'm here, but you just do it.
We should have to do a live performance, Randy. I didn't even think about it.
I can do it. You want me to do a live performance?
Would you like to?
First of all, obviously, if you listen to the record, you know I can't do a live performance. However, I could do a different interpretation.
I listened to it. I did.
You want me to do it?
If you want to, for sure.
You want me to do a little? Yeah. Okay. So seriously, Justin, you've listened to the.
I have it up right now. I have the YouTube version. I listen on Spotify and on YouTube. So whichever one helps you the best.
Okay. Well, they're the same. They're the same. Yeah. It's that version. What I'm going to play you now here live with the Geeks is a totally different, same melody, same words, but it's going to be a different thing. I'll tell you what. Play a little bit of the record now that you have on YouTube.
Okay.
Just a little bit of the feeling of it. Then I'm going to say stop in 10 seconds. Just go ahead. Seriously.
That's
Can you do it?
Yeah, for sure.
Come on. We're winging it, but it's good.
We are.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I have to share my screen to this thing. 1 sec. We'll do this.
Yeah, Justin, why you do
I'm doing this for a reason. We're just going to do. Okay, just for a second.
Okay.
Go. Give it a little volume, baby.
Yeah, Justin, turn that up, man.
Hey, come on, turn it up.
Is it not up higher?
Yeah, you started it already?
Yeah, can you not hear it?
Okay, so you hear that?
From your place.
Yeah.
You hear the feel of it. Okay.
You've been locked.
Okay. All right? Okay. So now we take that song written about this whole thing and we're going to get out, but you hear the thing. It's kind of fun. It's not like some sad thing. So now I'll play you a little bit of that song in the Randy Edelman old piano arpeggiated style, and you get a whole different feeling.
Please, yeah.
You ready?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Live here with the Geeks. 2, not 3, unless you count me.
Okay.
That rhymes. 2, not 3, unless you count me. Okay, so seriously now, here is the unplugged, one-time only version of Coming Out Your Other Side, which is basically the real title is Grab Your Hat, Put Your Best Suit On. That's really the title of this song, but I called it Coming Out the Other Side. Here we go. You got sound?
We do. Yeah, we do.
You wake up with a smile on your face, 'cause today you can run from your place. You've been locked in your house all year long, but today you can sing a new song. You've been pushed from your purpose in life. You've been scared by the edge of a knife. Now it's time to fight back. Spread out, time to see what this life's all about. So take a good look all around you and let your heart be filled with pride. Grab your hat, put your best suit on. You're coming out the other side. There's a new kind of spring in your step. You got a fresh attitude. You've got pep. There's a new kind of smile on your face and a confidence. Well, that's your new base. So just take a good look all around you and let your heart fill up with pride. Grab your hat and put your best suit on. You're coming out the other side. Grab your coat, take your belongings. You're coming out the other side. The other side. First. Ow! That was a first.
That was awesome. Thank you.
For
Randy.
geeks.
That's great.
So
Thanks.
that wasn't the whole thing, but you
But
got the idea.
got
and
the
of
idea.
course, it's a complete different kind of feeling.
Yeah. I like that a lot. That's great.
All right. You got it, baby. I mean,
Yeah.
this is worth, I mean, you know, that's now worth a little. You got to.
Your royalties are in the mail. I
No,
get it.
there's
I
no.
get it.
And
Yeah.
no royalties. It's okay. I don't give a shit.
Oh, that's
All right.
awesome.
Okay. So you got a little, you know, took a little time, but
Yeah.
you got a little extra there.
Got a little, yeah. We very much appreciate it. So I was remiss not to bring up one of my favorite childhood movies that you scored
What's
a
that?
long time ago. It was Drop Dead Fred. Do you have any stories about Drop Dead Fred? Because as a kid,
Fred.
that was one of my favorite,
Okay. Do I have a
Movie.
story about it?
or anything you want to tell me about it.
No, you want to really hear it?
I do. I
Okay.
do.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. I've done lots of movies, and fortunately, this is not one of them that became a classic. It's a classic to you, and that's fine as
Yeah.
long as one person loves it. And by the way, lots of people love that movie, but it was sort of an English movie because the guy who was the star of it, who unfortunately is no longer with us, I think. I didn't know who he was when I was doing the movie. He had a TV show in England, very well known. Rick Mayall, I think was the guy's name. If I'm correct, I hope I was. Okay, you want to hear the story about it?
Please, yeah.
Okay,
Love
because I'll give you these stories that are really funny. Okay, here's the story behind it. So, long story, blah, 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 blah. I started doing films many years after I was working as a musician, doing a million things, writing songs, doing albums, da, 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 da. So now I'm in the big time. I'm out here in Hollywood. I'm doing these big movies. Okay. So it's 19, whatever the hell it is.
Mhm.
And it's Christmas time. Now, everything's different now. But it used to be, okay. So the big movie release date, if you wanted to have a movie come out and you did a movie, was Christmas Day. Now, Christmas Day always had huge blockbusters coming out on Christmas Day, and because the studios wanted to get their hot, artsy fartsy pictures out, okay, the little ones that may have Oscar hopes, they would also, the big studios that had those big things that were sure winners for sure, they would release them on Christmas Day also, in order to get under the first of the year thing to get the movie out. Because if it didn't come out by January 1st, it couldn't be nominated for an Oscar that year. Okay, why am I telling you this? Okay, so now I think I'm a big shot. I'm really like very euphoric because I had gotten into this whole film thing. And so this year comes up and it turns out I have 2 movies coming out on Christmas Day. Okay. One was like the big commercial movie starring Arnold Schwarzenegger called Kindergarten Cop. Big Ivan Reitman picture, major. And the other was by it wasn't artsy, the best director in the world. My favorite director, has nothing to do with me working with him. Anytime he had a picture, my wife and I were at the theater that day or the next day. That's how great this guy was. He was an English director by the name of Alan Parker. Who was Alan Parker? Of course, you know who Alan Parker was. By the way, we lost him a few months ago also. And he had done like Midnight Express, Fame, Pink Floyd The Wall, Mississippi Burning, Birdie. I mean, every picture was like different and phenomenal and no bullshit. I mean, straight, just great emotion. No matter what he did, it was always a picture called Shoot the Moon. I mean, forget it. Okay. And he had written, now the picture that he did before I met him and was hired to do was Mississippi Burning, which was not only, obviously a like unbelievable movie and so in every way. That was the picture, got like 8 Academy Award nominations. And so he had something that he wrote about the Japanese internment camps in California in the World War II, where they took everybody off the street right here where I am, a few blocks away, and put them in these camps. Awful story, all true. So Alan Parker wrote a wonderful movie called Come See the Paradise. And only because he was so hot by that time could he get a picture like that made about that kind of subject matter. You couldn't just be anybody and get a picture. And it was also not a little, I said a little, it wasn't a little movie at all. It was fantastically done. And anyway, so that's the picture that I had done. Alan Parker had promised me that when this picture was going to be in the competition in Cannes, which it was, that he was going to take me there. I thought, oh, he's saying this. I ended up going to Cannes, sitting next to, Michael Douglas and all these people. And when they showed Come See the Paradise in Cannes, the music down, you don't know the movie, do you? And you don't know my score. Now, you will know my score when you hear it, because it became the most used music of any movie for trailers. And it's just, if you heard the music, you'd say, I know that. That's from The Rock, or that's from, well, it's not. It's from that. Anyway, the music became used all over the place. I would have rather, well, I'm getting ahead in the story because there's a reason I'm telling you this. Okay, so here's the deal. I have not only the Arnold Schwarzenegger big, huge picture, but I just don't have I have a film coming out that's a class thing that is done by the best director, for my money, in the world, bar none. So it's a little more than just a great art film. It's an art film, but big time, Okay. So here's what is in my head. Oh, by the way, so we went to Cannes. They showed the film. I was sitting there at the end. Everybody gave a standing ovation. The theme came up, and I'm saying, I'm at the Oscars next year. There's not any fucking doubt about it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's it. I mean, it's not even, I'm here. I heard the music. The picture is phenomenal, like the most moving thing you can imagine. And you'll see when you see it, if you go out and take the time to get it, you press it up and you get it. So that had happened. So now I'm back here in town. It's Christmas. Pictures come out, and I'm like, ooh, I'm ready. What am I ready for? I'm ready for every fucking producer and studio to be calling me after the first of the year, because I did these 2 diametrically opposed, great pictures, and they're going to come out, and everybody's going to call me, right?
Yeah.
You know what I'm getting to.
Yeah.
Okay. And you know where I'm going a little.
Yeah, a little bit.
So now, okay, this is all true. And why would I tell you this about something? Because you know it's going to be a great thing in the end. I mean, not great. So, but January 1st passes, and Kindergarten comes out and is a huge hit. And Come See the Paradise comes out and gets all these great reviews, only in a few theaters. Unfortunately, it wasn't a good time to have a bashing America picture, which that was, because it was about the internment camps. Wasn't a great time to have something like that out at the time.
Mm-hmm.
So January 1st comes, and I'm sitting, phone's not ringing. I'm not only getting, the phone's not ringing, I'm not hearing from anybody about anything. I'm supposed to be like getting 20 offers the next day, right? Because just have my name on those pictures. Forget about if the music stinks. I got to be cool, you know. Okay. Mm-hmm. Nothing happens. Nothing. 1 week goes by. 2 weeks go by. 3 weeks go by. And finally, I thought it was a joke. I thought someone was playing a joke on me. I get a call about a little movie, sort of a children's movie made by a company 2 companies I never heard of. The company that made the movie was called Working Title. It's like, couldn't these yo-yos come up with a name? They had to put Working Title because we can't. Okay, now this is way back when, before Working Title was the greatest. Okay. And whose film is it? Is it Warner's? Is it 20th? Is it Universal? It's a company called New Line that I also hadn't heard of. They were a rather new, I just, hadn't been out there. Maybe I'd heard of them, but I was like, okay, they have no money. It's a children's thing. It's produced by a company called Working Title and distributed by New Line. And here's the kicker. Who's the director? Oh, okay. They send over his name. His first name is Ate. A-T-E, like I ate a grape. Now I think, you know what? This is somebody who knows what I expected to happen and is playing a joke on it. And his name is Ate de Jong, D-E capital J-U-N-G. And he's a director, evidently, from Holland. He's a Dutch director directing a kid's show about, it's like, this is not something I'm going to give any time to or even call back. Mm-hmm. But since, I was in the work mode and I wasn't doing anything, I called 8 and I got to, that's the story of Drop Dead Fred. That's and awesome. You know what turned out? It turned out his name is Atta de Jong. Brilliantly talented guy. He's one of the few guys he's back in Amsterdam, but I remain friendly with him for years. And I see him when I go to London, and he was a great guy, and it was a really fun experience. And they had no budget also. So I did it myself with like 2 or 3 people, and because I didn't really give a shit, I did something. I took chances. Like if you hear the main title, the main title of that movie, it was just black. And they said they're going to do some funny animation. So I just went wild and wrote this like circus stuff. I would have never done that anyway. It was great. It turned out great. The picture didn't do too much business or at all. However, in England, where the guy was well known, it did. And now, very recently, I got a call to do the musical live in London on the West End of Drop Dead Fred, which I'm not going to do. You know what I mean? I'm not gonna start concocting. But I did meet with them when I was there last time, right before the pandemic. But anyway, the reason I'm telling that story is I think it's maybe isn't that funny now that I was anticipating something, and what came down the pipe when I was expecting Steven Spielberg to call me, you know, or something else. Drop Dead Fred with Atta de Jong, but it turned out to be a really fun, wonderful experience, and I'm glad you like it. And by the way, I've talked to other people recently. I don't mean to like single you out and say you're not so special.
No, it's all good.
Exactly the same thing that you're saying, and kids just it wasn't that much of it was a kids movie, but it had some kind of sophisticated stuff in there, you know.
Well, it was the one movie I get my dad to watch with me a lot. I was like, shut up and like watch this movie.
No, good. Yeah. So, and by the way, those stories and you saying that means as much to me or more. Like, I love it when people would pick out a little gem maybe or something and say, and I do get that. You know, I did a lot of successful blockbuster kind of things and things that were other things that were successful that weren't big blockbuster types. But when I hear that, it always turns me on. Just the fact that you're sitting there and thinking of you and your dad sitting there and like listening over and over again to watching Drop Dead Fred.
Anyway, for sure.
That's it. Yeah.
I know Drop Dead Fred's been making its rounds on streaming, and you know, British humor wasn't as popular in the U.S. back then as it is now. So.
Yeah, but you know what? It wasn't in any way, shape, or form. It was an American movie. Yeah. It wasn't supposed to be. And the backstory on that was that picture was supposed to be directed by a hot guy named Tim Burton.
Oh, that makes sense.
Right. That was the first thing. How you get from Tim Burton to Atta de Jong, I don't know. But Atta was great. But anyway, that was the backstory, which I didn't know at the time. Was that it had been developed, you know, and very few movies actually now or back then actually get made. They hang around, they go through different changes, and very few get a green light. And so there's always backstories. And if, you know, there's always the first shot that somebody wants, and they know the star they want, and they know the director they want, and it rarely turns out that the movie is made that way. And sometimes it does, you know, but anyway, that's that story.
So you brought up something interesting that I hadn't thought about until you brought it up. But the film festival you went to, do you get the opportunity to go to a lot of those? Have you been to thousands of them at this point? Like, have you been to a lot of them?
Zero. That was it. Yeah. I never went. No, you never go. There's no reason to go. And now, of course, I'm trying to think. No, I think that's the only time I went. And by the way, the only reason I went was because the picture was made by 20th Century Fox. At the time, Barry Diller was the head of Fox, and a guy named Joe Roth was the head of the movie part. And guess what? He didn't want to go. So a dear friend of mine who ran the production there, Roger Birnbaum, who I did a million things that he's produced. They didn't go. So he got the 2 tickets, dumped his wife, and the next thing I know, we were on the plane, staying at like the Hotel du Cap, which is this, I can't even describe it. So that's how I went. It's not like Alan Parker said, I'm going to have you there with me. And then he asked me to go and picked up no, I got to go because of this odd situation, but it turned out, you know, it was fun.
Yeah.
And I swear to God, I was sitting there. The film ended because it ends with this very, you know, these woman who's in the internment camp, and she falls in love with a soldier, and then the war's over, and they come back, and there's a kid, and they needed to train. The music swells. It's like it's the ending of all time. It's just what you want. And I'm sitting there, and everybody's standing up, and Alan Parker motions to me to stand up. Nobody knows who the fuck I was, I'm like at the it's just done. It's a done deal. I'm at the Oscars. I'm at least at the Oscars. Maybe I won't get it, but I'm at the Oscars.
Yeah.
But I wasn't. And those Oscars the next year, the craziest thing was I had done this little movie with a girl who had never been in anything. She wins the Oscar, Marissa Tomei, for My Cousin Vinny. You know what I mean? When I did My Cousin Vinny, it was like, no, I don't. There's nothing. Nobody cared. Nobody particular. It was obviously Joe Pesci was great, and the movie was funny. But as far as it becoming like the classic that it's become, which is great, no, there was not any. And somebody winning an Oscar, like who would win an Oscar? Was she great? Yes, she was phenomenal. The first time I saw it, I was just on the floor laughing. She also had a nice ass, but
I mean, it helps.
I got to ask you about one, and I do remember the score to this, and this is, I think, one of Eddie Murphy's most underrated movies of all time, which is The Distinguished Gentleman.
One of my faves, and thank you. That's one that is not mentioned, I had a blast. Why? Because the director, who was another English director, was Jonathan Lynn, who had directed My Cousin Vinny. And then because that picture was sort of hot, Eddie Murphy went to Disney after he'd done all those pictures, Coming to America and Beverly Hills Cop, and what was that other great one? I can't think of. He was allowed to make a picture at Disney, but it was kind of like a big thing because he was basically always at Paramount. So Jonathan, hot off this little picture, My Cousin Vinny, got the job, and that's my connection. And it was Disney, and it was Distinguished Gentleman. And, I thought it was, and I got to do a really interesting score because it was Washington, and it had different stuff. He was from, down south or a tropical island, and I did all this Caribbean kind of stuff. And then I did some very kind of Washingtonian governmental kind of stuff. So I loved it. And, the picture came out, and it's just, it did okay, but it certainly, didn't do as well as they would have thought. And so sometimes these things, then you don't get the same response as you do to something that is just out there. And so, but go ahead. Sorry, I interrupted you.
You're fine. I love the movie, and I think more people need to get eyes on it because for some reason this movie still hasn't caught fire. Like, this is one of Eddie Murphy's great films of the 90s. I don't care what anybody says. I loved it.
I thought it was great. I thought he was great. I just thought it was a total winner. It was, and I had a blast. And, these things for me, when you mention them, well, it depends who the director was. And there's a lot of the stuff surrounding the politics and the story and of how the movie was made. But for me, it's always like you mentioned a movie, all I go to is my score. The score to Drop Dead Fred, that funny kind of circus, you know what I mean? It's like original. The score to Distinguished Gentleman is a really big score, but fun and interesting, and a lot of different kinds of things. So that's my big, remembrance of it is always like, was I happy with what I did? And did it get by the quote powers that be when they mixed it? Did they use it the way each cue, the way it was supposed to be used? Did it the pacing, especially with a comedy? And in that case they did. And I thought it was great. And they're always surrounded. Then I remember I went into dragging the Bruce Lee story. I remember that picture came out, and I was kind of disappointed in what happened. And then I went into that, another one that the music was all over the place over years and years, and still is now, and a different kind of thing. But again, a kind of a little biopic that was made in a kind of different way. And I wouldn't imagine it would have, even though it was about Bruce Lee, I wasn't really a Bruce Lee aficionado, and I wasn't aware of his story and all that kind of stuff. So I always remember these events that surrounded that.
So when you're composing in a movie, I'm just kind of curious, is how many times do you watch the movie or the scene before you're like, okay, this is what I want to put to this?
Okay.
You know what I mean?
Okay. How many times you watch it? You watch it 24/7, but 24/7 you'll say, how long? How many days?
Yeah.
How many weeks? How many months? As much time as you have. Last of the Mohegans, a couple of weeks. Easiest job I ever had with the toughest director in the world, Michael Mann. That's another story. But the point is, I came in late. It was a crazy situation. Blah, blah, blah. Nobody wanted a soundtrack. And I said at the last minute, after we got another movie that people, it's historical, it's long, nobody's in it. Daniel Day-Lewis had never been in any picture that had any kind of audience. Yes, he won an Oscar for a great film called My Left Foot, but he hadn't been in something. So it was almost like it's unknowns. Madeline Stowe, the lead, who was fantastic. The lead, the love interest, she was not. So anyway, it was kind of considered a sort of disaster. It was in a completion bond company. And by the time I got in there, won't even get into that situation. Now it's kind of a well-known thing because I put together this soundtrack that nobody wanted with my cues and the other composer's cues. And it's the biggest selling soundtrack without a song on of like it still sells every day. It's just like I'm trying to think why I'm even mentioning that. I forgot what you must have asked me.
Well, just how long how much time is spent, right?
Okay, that was basically people would say, "Oh my God, Michael Mann," and blah blah blah. Well, it was pretty straight ahead. Why? Because I didn't have any time.
Right.
And sometimes, it was a drama. A drama usually dictates what you're writing to a scene. It's pretty, it's ominous, it's romantic, some of these I became the comedy king at a certain period, that's much harder. Where does the music go? What is it doing? Is it funny? Well, no, that doesn't. If Eddie Murphy isn't funny in this, or Jim Carrey in The Mask, or Joe Pesci and My Cousin Vinny, the picture's not going to work.
Right.
They don't need me being funny writing music. They don't need music at all. I just talked about this with my new score to Ghostbusters 2. I mean, my old score that's finally coming out. That those guys, their character and their whole attitude was established in the first movie, and they didn't need music, even though it's wall-to-wall music, the score of Ghostbusters 2, but it didn't need it. What needed music was the story about what was going on in New York and the menace and the horrible Carpathian monster and the supernatural quality of the inventiveness of these 4 or 5 pals. That's what needed music, but not all these guys. So what I'm saying is that that takes thought, much more thought. Dramas, the pictures you consider, this is really a good movie or something. Those things, a lot of times, not all the times, but it's not that they don't take thought, but usually where the part of the movie, the cues that the movie needs musical support, pretty much the emotion and passion of whatever that scene needs musically kind of dictates itself. And you don't look at it and go, duh, what am I going to do here? Or does this need music? sort of obvious where those things go. So to get back to your question, it depends how much time you have, but basically, yes, you sit and you watch the picture from the beginning, and you watch every frame of the picture, and you decide where you and the director and their something called a temp score. I forgot if we discussed this.
We did briefly.
Oh, then I don't need to.
Yeah, briefly with the temp score. Yeah.
So and you have as long as you have. If you have a couple of months, which you never do, and to be honest with you, I like to be thrown into the fire.
Sure.
The less time, the less they're going to screw with you. The guy's not going to be at the door every day or twice a day, maybe only once. And basically, you have time to sit right where I'm sitting back in my little bunker back here. And guess what I can do? I can watch the picture and think. Now, you've got to come up with your stuff literally right away, or you can't do this kind of work.
Sure.
So you have to come up right away with it. But you kind of play around with it, and sometimes you make changes the next day, but you better have that cue written the day before, and then you can look at it and you can pick at it and say, it should start later. I need to change the mood in bar 54. Now, of course, with computers and everything, it's totally different than when these brilliant people wrote movie music all those years ago. They didn't have this. What did they have? Nothing. They had a click and a piano before they went in front of a full orchestra. And so now it's a bit easier. You just lock to your picture, and you can't be wrong. Once you've locked that cue and set your tempo, it's going to be right, not 99, it's going to be right 100% of the time, unless they cut their picture.
Sure.
But there's ways, so you kind of get around that. And but the answer to your question is you just look at it as much as you can. What it is as long as you have and you're on that picture, I'm living the picture. If it's a period thing, it takes place in the 17th century, I'm living. If it's an Eddie Murphy film, that's what it is. You're living the picture, the characters. There's not 1 second that goes by, whether you're out to dinner, which you don't go out much, or sleeping, or eating, or walking around outside trying to get away from it, that it's not completely. That's what this work is. You're completely focused,
consumed by it. Sure.
Oh yeah, it's completely consuming, and that's the only way that you can get this work done. And when you look back at stuff and you go, "Holy shit! How you do it is you were consumed 24/7 all day for 6 weeks, 3 months, whatever it was, and they're all the same. It's a tremendous amount of work. It's not just inspiration. It's a combination of things. And with this, I don't remember what we talked about, but with doing what a film composer does, you have to be fast and you have to be right.
Yeah.
You can't be slow and be right, and you can't be fast and be wrong. You got to be right and you got to be fast. And therein everybody has to be that way. And if you're not that, it doesn't work.
Mm-hmm.
And and people find out very quickly.
Very quickly, yeah, sure.
You're not. No, yeah. There's no hiding with this stuff. You can't hide. You can't run. You can't. There's no bullshitting this. You're in. You have a certain amount of time. It's political pressure. Blah blah blah. You got to somehow figure out how to lock yourself in that room alone and watch the thing. And when they're not here, you don't come up with the stuff when these people when the director is sitting over my shoulder. You come up with it when nobody's here.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And hopefully, you get no matter, and even though in the end, it's their baby, you give it to them and they do the film mix, which completely changes everything. They don't have to use the music where it went. They don't have to play the music. They don't have to play it loudly enough to be heard. They can completely change it. So you always hope that the movie ends up sort of the way it was planned, and that you have a couple of those great moments that your score lives in a movie. And as long as you have when it be 3 or 4 out of 50 or 60 cues, then that's a victory.
Still, one of my favorite film scores was The Mask. So it's a very memorable film score, and I've listened to it many times. Like, how did you get involved with that project? Because you did not. I know nobody saw this one blowing up the way it did.
Well, no. Nobody blew up because they didn't know the guy. Now, so
Yeah.
here's a story, another story. I mean, these stories, I don't remember all of them exactly, but I do because I remember. Okay, The Mask. Again, a little picture made by guess who? Now, I'm trying to think. Timing. New Line made The Mask. Okay. No budget. We spotted the movie in a terrible motel room in Burbank. That's why it's okay. Did we spot it? No, we spotted it. Now, I was called to that picture because they wanted somebody to do it. He couldn't do it. So I think that was the start. Then they come to me. Again, I'm coming to you, blah, 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 no money. That's always okay. You don't do this because, everybody, I ended up, but that's not the real, okay, there's no money. That always means, well, there's no money in the budget to do. Forget about if I get a penny or not to do it. It means that you don't have the flexibility. If there's no money, you have to figure out a way to do it. What's the way? It's always, okay, you do it, you're going to do it with a small group or totally yourself or whatever. But that's okay. But I didn't know anything about it. I knew one thing about it that I didn't like, which had to do with something else, which I can't get into on the air here. With somebody involved in it. So they called me about it. I'm sitting there. I had leased a house. I had sold my house for some reason, and I leased a house, and I'm sitting up there, and my kid, who's like 6, I'd say, or 7 at the time. Somehow I mentioned something, and he goes, "Dad, you gotta do this movie." Why? Well, you know that show that I watch? No, I'm never in this kid's room. He's watching a TV show all the time that he loves, but I never heard about it. It was called In Living Color. Okay? I never heard of it, didn't know him. But there was one white guy in there who was funny. His name was Jim Carrey. So he obviously now was out there in the world. And things obviously were coming together in a big way. He had made this movie, and he had made another movie. So when Noah came to me, he said, "You guys, this guy is brilliant." Maybe at 6 years old, he didn't use brilliant. He said, you got to do this. This is cooler than cool. Also, at that time, I was very cognizant that I was trying to get away from doing comedies. I was happy and elated to be doing what I was doing, but I was trying to steer the ship a little. So if a comedy came up, I was hard pressed. And if a comedy came up and they said, "We don't have any money," that was maybe okay. It just turned out that he had this movie that was opening. So Noah said, "Okay," we went down to Grauman's Chinese, and we saw a movie that had just come out called Ace Ventura: Pet Detective. And of course, it was like, wow, this guy is great. You know what I mean? This guy's when I see this guy's a brilliant talent. Let's put it that way. Okay. So I see the movie. Obviously, the movie it had just come out, but you knew this thing was going to be a monster hit. But the big thing is this guy. So the next day I get back, I call in the morning and I say, "Send over something from this film, The Mask." It may have had a different title at the time. So they send over the scene, an odd scene. I said, "Just send over anything of this guy." And it's the scene where he's got the mask on and he's doing that imitation of Sally Fields. You love me. You know where she won the Oscar and she did that speech.
Yeah.
Well, that was in The Mask. He did some shtick after he sang that song, and I saw it. Fuck, forget it. You know. So I called that day and said, I'm in. I'm in for nothing. I'll pay for it. I'm in. So that's the story of how I got involved with it. So we spotted the movie in this little motel. Now, obviously, the Ace Ventura thing becomes a hit. So by the time I'm scoring The Mask, we didn't have a lot of time. It suddenly, from a little picture, became the hot news, really hot because of this guy. So at the beginning, they had said, okay, we're going to give you $10 to do this. It's a package. Here's your $10. I decided, okay, they gave me $10, non-union, which I didn't like doing, but I wasn't going to be doing it here or in New York, or couldn't afford to do it in London. So I can do, now I had been experienced with doing some stuff, different stuff, non-union stuff, even though I didn't like doing it. So I considered, you know what? You can do whatever, you can go wherever you want. You got $10, it's in your pocket. Go wherever you want. So now in this picture, by the time I was ready to score it, this thing was going to be the picture of the summer. I mean, it was already like hot. And what do? I stroll off to Ireland and I recorded it with the Irish Opera Orchestra.
That's awesome.
And now they're calling me, well, you can't do that. What do you mean? I can go as long as I do it for the $10 and it's non blah blah blah. I can go wherever I want. So I just they were freaking out. Now by that time they probably would have said, okay, they would have thrown money at it. Already at the time they were throwing money at better effects. It changed.
Yeah.
But luckily, because it was a great experience, I went off to Ireland. Where Elmer Bernstein, connections all over the place. He did the brilliant first score to Ghostbusters, as of course doing the Magnificent Seven, The Man with the Golden Arm, and what's the great film that was just on Broadway? The South, the courtroom thing. Come on.
Mm-hmm.
What's the biggest civil war in the South? It's huge. It's just on Broadway. I'll think of it in a second. Anyway, so the Elmer Bernstein little connection, he told me, and by the way, he did My Left Foot in Ireland for that same reason. So he had told me about it, and that's why I went over there. So I go off to Ireland to do this score, and To Kill a Mockingbird. That's the brilliant movie and brilliant score. One other of a million scores that Elmer did. So I go off, and there I am. I did my stuff that I do here, the kind of hipper stuff. And I go off and we do the score in Ireland, and comes back here and like, boom, But that's the story, and that's why, and people, they can't believe that music was done. And if you listen to that, which you say that you have, and I believe you, Jason, that's an example of what I said. You listen to comedies, that's a very serious score. It's a discordant, dark. There's a few things that are fun and big romantic stuff that I went for at the end of the music with the movie, where he throws the mask into the water, and it's romantic. But for the most part, it's kind of the odd score that's more like for Black Beetlejuice, or it's more like that. It's not. There's no music that's funny music, and the most serious music, which I could never believe. So the Mask opened. The opening of The Mask is the guys in the 17th century sailors, for these guys from Norwegian, whatever they're called. They bury this mask It's a long thing. And it shows them burying a mask in the 17th century. Then you cut to black, and all of a sudden we're in Edge City or wherever that took place, and this guy's working in a bank. Well, guess what? They had screenings, and they showed the beginning, which was phenomenal. And my music was like, it was the best music that I wrote for it. And the theme and all my feelings of my score come out of that opening. So they showed the picture, and all the kids sat there, and they didn't get it. Okay? So I remember saying, well, they got it after they saw the nerd working in the bank when Cameron, what's her name, makes her screen debut and walks in with her fake boobs and everything into the bank with that wild music I wrote with that wailing saxophone recorded in Ireland, which is like, it's the most American kind of thing. Well, I remember saying, well, what are they going to do? Guess what they did? Gone. The whole impetus for that film, the mask, what it is, where the music came from, gone. The picture opens, and it opens with this guy working at a bank. And that's what it was. Now, they cut to a little thing where somebody, they dives under the water of a bridge.
Yeah.
But it has nothing to do, and that's where they introduce my odd theme. Whatever. It was like an odd theme. Well, when I was doing my concerts, I remember it. Now I always forget it. Anyway, but the point is, you never can tell. They chopped. It's gone. There is no beginning of that movie. The beginning is, you say, oh, yeah, there's a beginning. It's what you see.
Yeah.
But it's like, how are they going to explain where the mask, the whole history of this mask that a guy puts on his face and he jumps? They never did. And that's that's that little mask story. That's a little bit about where it was done and what happened. And I was sick. But if you listen to my soundtrack, there it is. Cut 1, The Origin of the Mask. That whole 4 or 5 minute segment, with those guys discovering this mask and burying it. So, every one of these things has an odd story, of shit that happened. And it happens because these movies take so long to make. I'm not talking about the shooting of them. That's the end. It's a 15-year story like that. I'm sure that was a comic book or something. The Mask, right? It was I don't know. I'm not into that, but it was a Marvel or it was some kind of, it was a guy. It was the guy called The Mask. So there's a long story about it. And then the movie happens or doesn't happen. Hopefully that's the successful end of a history of somebody having a subject matter, whether it's a novel or a comic book or whatever it is. And that was my story, which entails a lot of different stuff to that quote little movie. And of course it went on to be a monster and a classic. And by the way, the good news about not only this, but what we were saying before about Eddie Murphy's picture, cable television came into its own. Cable television was around years before it ever became anything. I used to pay a guy $50 and he'd go up the telephone pole and stick it in for me. It's called the Z channel. So I wouldn't pay. I'd give him $50. He'd stick something up. But it was years later that they could afford to buy content. And what did they want? Everybody wanted the same thing. Hollywood star-driven pictures to be able to program. And then things came around like The Sopranos on HBO. And when I did Gettysburg originally for a little company called TNT that was part of Turner's thing, it was like, what? TNT? Well, I'm not going to do that. So what I'm saying is, as a result of that, people saw composers, especially, really quietly profited in a big way. Because if you did a certain kind of movie, it didn't matter if it didn't. It would be great if it did business, but it was still going to be seen. Like Distinguished Gentleman, for a while there was on every day, all day, and every So you get that thing, and the nice thing now is that people can go. All they got to do is, if they like a certain picture, want to punch in the movie, YouTube, Randy Edelman, and you will get the score, and you can listen to it. You don't have to buy a record, or it's kind of cool. I only discovered that in the scheme of things recently, because it's like, holy shit. You can, whatever you want to hear. You want to hear something for The Mask? Put it in there. You may not, they may not have every cut from the thing, but they have lots of music, and you can certainly get whatever it is, and it's great. You can hear it. You don't have to go out and buy anything, and hopefully you can see the movie, which you can in other ways on any one of these cable stations or streaming.
Right.
But the fact that you can you like the music to something and you can press a button is it still is remarkable to me. People used to, they wanted to, first of all, there were no soundtrack albums to anything but like the biggest movies. It was James Bond or, Moon River or something. Yeah, somebody would, but most of the time there were no soundtrack albums, and that became a thing, and there was a niche and all that. And now you don't even have to get it, which is, if you want it, yeah, you can get the soundtrack album, but you can hear it right on your device anytime you want. So that's to me, that's cool. Whether we're being, it's being tracked or compensated or streamed, that's another matter.
Right.
The fact that if people like something, they can get it right away, literally in a second, is, to me,
availability is wonderful.
That's a turn on to me, that somebody can like something of mine, and I can like something of somebody else's, and I can basically, boom. If I've watched at 3 a.m, I see a movie I haven't seen, and who wrote that music? What is that? And I punch in the thing, and not only do I see who wrote it, I can hear it, and then I hear it and I say, "Wow, that is great." And once in a great while, I send off an email to somebody. And they're like, "What? That was 12 years ago. Nobody ever saw that movie." And then they get a thing from me. And then the next day I get like, "Oh, that's great."
Yeah.
Because I like getting that kind of stuff myself. So, the different.
I want to thank you so much for talking to us twice. We could talk to you for another hour. Movies.
No, we're going. You know why? Because it's 5:00. I'm going. Great to see you geeks again.
Yeah.
Always, Randy.
You got the song. You got the
That's
stories.
Yeah.
I'll see you next time or next year.
All right, buddy.
Thanks, Jason.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, Randy.
Have a
Take care.
great evening.
You too.
Okay.
Everybody check out Randy's single. It is called Coming Out the Other Side. It's fantastic. I will share the link, and I'll put all of the links in the description of this video so you guys can check out the song and check out more of Randy's work, because every one of the scores he's done, I own all of those movies on Blu-ray, and I think he is fantastic. So
Thank you. Thanks,
check
guys.
it out.
Take
Thanks,
care.
Randy.
Stay safe.
See ya.
See ya. And from Justin and myself, everybody, you guys have a great night.